We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph in Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 38a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara had asked, what do we need both of the psukim of Lo Sichu Kofer and also Kol Chayrim? They both seem to be teaching the exact same thing. They seem to be teaching that in a situation of the death penalty, so you're not allowed to pay money in order to get out of the death penalty. So what do we need Kol Chayrim for in addition to Lo Sichu Kofer? And the Gemara says, no, I might have thought, Hani Mili Heicha Dehargo Derech Aliyah. Maybe this halacha only applies, let's say the person kills the person with an upward motion. In such a case, if the person would have done it b'shogeg by mistake. So again, like we said earlier, there's no kapara over there. In such a situation, you don't go to golus. Aval hargo derech yerida. But let's say he kills him in a downward motion. The nitna shegagasol lechatpara. Where there, if he would have done it b'shogeg, if he would have done it by mistake, so then there would have been a kapara in the sense that he would have gone to golus. So in that case, emon nishkol mamona minei v'niftere. So I might have thought that yes, we do take money from the person. We're able to take money from the person, and he becomes pater. He gets out of it. Kamash malon. So that's what the pasuk needs. That's why we need an additional pasuk to say it doesn't make a difference if it's derech aliyah or if it is derech yerida. Rashi over here says, "Hani mili de lo sichu kofer lifto rotzeach mezid miktala." I would have thought that this pasuk of lo sichu kofer that we're saying that by a rotzeach, let's say he wants to pater himself by paying off money. So heicha dehargo b'mezid derech aliyah. So if he kills him b'mezid with an upward motion, b'hanav az yado he kome achorav the chavasa b'shogeg lo nitan lechaparas golus. So if he would have killed him in this upward motion, where if he would have done that b'shogeg, so then there would not be golus. Kedechsiv vayipol derech nefila, because that's what it says over there. When it talks about golus, it talks about derech nefila. So again, I would have thought only in that direction, but let's say it would have been a situation where it was derech yerida, where there was nitna shegagaso lechapara. I might think that the person would be able to take money and be pater, and so therefore we need the second pasuk. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rava. So Rava said back to him, Hami detana devei chizkiya nafka. If that's the chiddush over here from this pasuk, that it's teaching us that even in a situation of a downward motion, that this halach is true, but that we already know from the Tana devei chizkiya we quoted earlier. The Tana devei chizkiya, because it was taught in the yeshiva of Chizkiya. Makei adam u'makei behema. Again, we compare a situation where you strike a person to a situation where you strike an animal. Ma makei behema lo chilakta bo ben shogeg lemezid ben miskavin l'shein miskavin ben derech yerida l'derech aliyah l'potra maman el l'chayva maman. Just like when you strike an animal, you have to pay money regardless of how it happens, whether it's by mistake or on purpose, with intention or without intention, whether it's a downward motion or an upward motion. You're not pater, rather you're chayiv to pay money. Af makei adam. So too when it comes to a situation where you strike a person, so in that case again there's the death penalty and there is no payment of money. So lo ta'achlok bo, you should not make a distinction ben shogeg lemezid, ben miskavin l'shein miskavin, ben derech yerida l'derech aliyah. You make no distinction between mistake and on purpose, with intention, without intention, a downward motion, an upward motion. L'chayvo mamon el l'potro mamon. In that case again, we're not talking about making the person chayiv money, but we're talking about having the person not pay money, because again there's a situation here of a death penalty involved. But in any case, you see from the Tana devei chizkiya that we don't make distinctions between derech aliyah and derech yerida. And so why would we need a second pasuk for this idea? And so the Gemara says, Rami Bar Chama, rather Rami Bar Chama says, Itzrich, we do need the second pasuk, we need both psukim, because I might have thought, Hani mili heicha, desimas eino v'harguba. That is only true in a situation where, let's say, he blinds a person, and then through that striking of the person's eye, he also kills that person. Aval heicha desimas eino v'harguba davar acher. But let's say you have a situation where he blinds the person, but then kills him with some other wound. So it all happens at the same time, but it doesn't happen with the same action. It's not that the blinding of the person also caused the person to die. So I might have thought in that situation where it's two separate things, so Eima Nishkol Mamona Mine, I might have thought that in that case we would take money from this individual. In this case for the eye that was lost, so he would have to pay money. And for the death, so we would say that then there would be a death penalty. And so that's what I might have thought, and that's what I need this second pasuk over here to say, that even in this situation there's no taking money. But the Gemara says, Amar le Rava, but Rava said back to him, Hanami me'idach Tana devei chizkiya nafka. This also comes from the other Tana devei chizkiya. We already know this idea. The Tana devei chizkiya, because it was taught in the yeshiva of Chizkiya, ayin tachas ayin, it says you do an eye for an eye, velo ayin v'nefesh tachas ayin. It's not an eye and a soul for an eye. In other words, you don't get the death penalty and also have to pay for the eye. So we see that from Tana devei chizkiya. So again, we would not need this second pasuk over here of Kol Chayrim to teach us this halacha. Elamar Rav Ashi, so the Gemara says, rather rather Rav Ashi says, Itzrich, we do need the second pasuk, Sal Gadai Techamina, because I might have thought, Hoel v'chidashu shachid shator b'knas, since the idea of paying a fine, let's say you have a situation where you're paying a fine, so that is a chiddush to have to pay a fine, so then I might have thought by a knas situation, Afagav the mikdal mishalim, even though he's getting killed, he has to pay as well, Kamashmal, and that's what this pasuk is saying, that in a situation of knas also, we do not take money. And the Gemara continues, but what about according to Rabbi who actually disagrees with that? And he says that by knas, because it is a chiddush, afagav de mikdal mashalim, then even though the person is getting killed, he does have to pay money. Rabbi disagrees with this and says actually that knas is in fact an exception. So hi kol chayrim avidle. So what is Rabbi going to do with the pasuk of kol chayrim? And to that the Gemara says, savar lo ketana kama de Rabbi Chananya ben Akavya. He's going to hold like the Tanakama of Rabbi Chananya ben Akavya. Rashi over here says, There was another opinion there, the Tanakama, that said, what do we learn from Kol Chayrim? We learn from Kol Chayrim that let's say somebody's being taken out to be given the death penalty, and then someone else says, I want to pay his erech, I want to donate his erech to the Beis HaMikdash, so that person is considered to have no value, and he doesn't have to donate anything. That's what's learned from Kol Chayrim, according to Rabbah. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Nara shenisarsav and iskarsha. Let's say I have a situation of a Nara, she's betrothed, and then she is divorced, and then at that point in time she is raped. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer Ein Lo Knas. Rabbi Yossi Aglili says she does not receive the Knas payment. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva says Yesh Lo Knas. She does receive the Knas payment. Ukanasa liatzman. She gets to keep that money for herself because since she was nisarsa, since she was betrothed, so she's no longer in the rishus of her father, and she keeps this payment for herself. Rashi over here says, Shenisarsa v'nisgarsha di'ilu arusa shelo nisgarsha. Now let's say she would have been betrothed but not divorced, so she's essentially a married woman. So then chayav misa, then the person who has relations with her is going to be chayav misa. V'ein sham knas. There is no knas payment because there's a death penalty. Ein lo knas. So then we said, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, in this case where she is nisarsa v'nisgarsha, she does not receive the knas. Taimam mefarish b'gemara. The reason for this will be explained in the Gemara. V'reisha de katani. Now the reisha, the earlier Mishnah which said Eishes Achiv v'Eishes Achiyaviv, it's talking about situations of married women, and over there we said T'vinisarsa v'niskar shaskin, and we said we're talking about where they were betrothed and then divorced, and we talked about the knas payment. V'katani yeshel and knas, it says that there was a knas. So Rashi points out Rabbi Akiva here. You'll have to say that those earlier Mishnayos, that's actually Rabbi Akiva's position, who says that a narish and a sarsa v'niskarsha receives knas, because again, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, there would be no knas in that situation. And the Gemara says, my time of the Rabbi Yossi Aglili, what's the reason of Rabbi Yossi Aglili? Why does he say that a Narush and a Sarsa and a Skarsha does not receive the Knas payment? Amar Kra, because the Pasuk says, Asher lo orasa, it says that she was not betrothed. And so therefore we can infer ha'orasa, ein lo Knas, so we can infer that if she was betrothed, there is no Knas payment in such a situation. That's Rabbi Yossi Aglili's source. And the Gemara continues with Rabbi Akiva. So what does Rabbi Akiva do with this pasuk of Asher lo orasa? It means to say Asher lo orasa le'avia. It means in a situation of lo orasa, so then the payment goes to her father. Ha'orasa, but if she was betrothed, liatzma, so then the payment goes to her. In other words, the pasuk doesn't mean to say that she doesn't receive the payment at all. On the contrary, it means if it's lo orasa, the payment goes to her father, but orasa, she actually gets to receive the payment directly. And the Gemara says, but ela me'ata, but according to Rabbi Akiva, that Asher lo orasa just means to say that in that situation it goes to her father, otherwise it goes to her. So why not darshan the rest of the pasuk that way? Nara v'lo bogeres, for example, the pasuk says that the payment of kanas applies to a nara, and we understand it to mean not a bogeres. But why don't we say hachanami? We should say the same thing. Deliatzma, we should say by a bogeres, she does get the payment and it goes directly to her. And similarly, besula v'lo ba'ula, we make a drush in the pasuk that it's only to a besula, a virgin receives the payment, not a ba'ula. So hachanami deliatzma, here also we should say by a ba'ula, she'll receive the payment directly. But we don't make those drushes in those situations. So why by Asher lo orasa would Rabbi Akiva say that? Ela legamri, rather no. What do we say in those cases? We say it means to say legamri, she doesn't get the payment at all in a situation of bogeres or ba'ula. Hachanami legamri, here also by the case of orasa, we should say that there's no payment at all. And so the Gemara answers, Amar Loch Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva will respond to you a different answer in terms of what he does with the pasuk of Lo Rasa. Hi Lo Rasa, this pasuk which says Lo Rasa, that she was not betrothed, Mi Boi Le L'Chidatanya, that's actually needed for the following brayse. It does not mean to exclude a situation of Orasa. It's needed for the following. Asher Lo Rasa, again, the pasuk says she was not betrothed. Prat Lenara Shenisarsa Vinisgarsha She'ein Lo Knas. Again, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that excludes the situation of a Nara who was betrothed and divorced. There's no Knas at all in that case. Divrei Rabbi Yossi Aglili. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Akiva says Yesh Lo Knas. There is a Knas in that situation. Ukanas Aliyavia, and the Knas goes to her father. V'hadin Nosen, and it's logical that way. Hoel V'Avia Zakoi B'Kesef Kiddusha, since her father was the one who merits to receive the Kesef Kiddushin on her behalf. V'Avia Zakai B'Kesef Kanasa, and furthermore, her father merits to receive the Kesef, the money, in terms of the Knas. Ma Kesef Kiddusha, just like when it comes to the Kesef Kiddushin, Afal Pisha Nisarsa V'Niskarsha, even though she was betrothed and divorced, he receives that money. Liavia goes to her father. Af Kesef Kanasa, so too when it comes to the Kesef of her Kanas. Afal Pisha Nisarsa V'Niskarsha Liavia, even though she was betrothed and she was divorced, still that money is going to go to her father. And so the Gemara says, "Im kain if so ma Talmud lomar asher lo rasa." So what does the pasuk mean? What do we need the pasuk to say? Asher lo rasa. And so to that, the Gemara says, "Mufna." The pasuk is an extra pasuk. It's an extra phrase. Lahakish lo v'lodon heimenu gzeir shav. In order to compare to it and to learn from it the following gzeir shav. Nemar kan asher lo rasa. Here it says the phrase asher lo rasa. V'nemar lahalon asher lo rasa. And it says further on asher lo rasa. Makan nun af lahalon nun. Just like over there, it is 50 kesef, so too, just like over here, it's 50 kesef, so too over there, it's 50 kesef, umalahalan shkolim, afkan shkolim. And just like over there, it is shkolim, so too over here, it refers again to shkolim, to 50 shekel. And Rashi over here explains, Ukanasali Avia, again, according to the Braiser, Rabbi Akiva says that in a situation of a Nara who was Nisarsa and Nisgarsha, the Knas payment actually goes to her father. That is different than Rabbi Akiva says in our Mishnah. Ulakamon Makshin and Rabbi Akiva, later on, we're going to ask this as a contradiction within Rabbi Akiva. Does the Knas go to her, or does it go to her father? Hoel V'Avia Zakai Bekesef Kiddusha. So then again, Rabbi Akiva said, since her father gets the Kesef Kiddushin, he also gets the Knas payment. Shalohu Benarusa, when she's a Nara, so he gets to receive the Kesef Kiddushin, not her. That's going to be learned out later on. Now, when it comes to the Kesef Kiddushin, he receives that even if she was previously betrothed and divorced, me'achar from a different person. But if she goes ahead while she's a Nara and has a Kiddushin again, even though again she was Nisarsa v'Niskarsha, he gets that money. Liavia have, and the money goes to her father. All the Kesef Kiddushin of Naras goes to the father. There's no exclusion of the phrase Asher lo Orasa when it comes to the Kesef Kiddushin. And so again, the Brisa said, just like the money goes to her father by the Kesef Kiddushin, so too by the Knas it goes to her father. The question then was, so what is the pasuk of Asher lo Orasa for? And so that we said, Nemar kan ba'ones, and Lahalan b'mefata uses this phrase by ones, and it also uses this phrase by the case of mefata, by the case of seduction, and we're comparing the two. Again, we're saying by both of them it's going to be 50, and by both of them it's going to be shekel. Malahalan b'mefata shkolim d'chsev yishkol. Again, it uses the word yishkol by mefata, so you compare one to the other, back and forth. And again, the Gemara said that's what we do with asher lo rasa, and that's why this phrase is not coming to exclude a situation of nisarsa v'nisgarsha. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Akiva, now according to Rabbi Akiva's opinion, my chazis da asher lo rasa l'gzeira shava. Why do you say that the phrase asher lo rasa is used for this gzeira shava that we just had above? Uvesula l'mutei be'ula, but you're using the word besula as an exclusion to say that the payment applies to a besula and not a be'ula. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Ches Amid Beis.